Imagine you're transformed into a monster. Suddenly, the only way to survive is eating human flesh. If that isn't bad enough, you're caught up in the middle of an ongoing war between humans and ghouls. How would you manage to stay alive and beat your new enemies? Kaneki is sitting in a cafe enjoying his egg sandwich with a friend of his. They talk about the ghoul activity in the neighborhood and ask themselves if they, by any chance, had ever met any. It is virtually impossible to identify a ghoul with your eyes only. They look like us, they dress like us, and they talk like us. Nothing about them stands out, apart from cannibalism, of course. They joke about how pretty much everyone around them at this moment could be one. We all know where this is going. Both of our characters live in ward number 20. Wards are pretty much districts that are named after numbers. There are 24 of them, and while Ward 1 is where the head government is located, our story plays out in Ward 20, which is much farther away of course. According to this logic, the most secure areas are naturally those that are closer to Ward number 1. So the farther away you get from the center, the more dangerous it gets and the more likely you are prone to any ghoul attacks. This fact alone would either convince me to board an airplane and bye-bye, or at least move into one of the inner circles, especially if I plan to build a family and have a stable life. Because, yes, I would like that. I really don't want to brief my kids every day before they take the school bus about possible ghoul threats. Of course, for ghouls, the opposite is the case. Technically speaking, if you're all about slinging dope and crack, you may too want to stay somewhere further away from Ward 1. Kaneki's crush suddenly steps into the cafe. He loses it, and we understand that our boy Kaneki here has to step up his game. The secretary type, huh? To each his own, bro. He eloquently stutters his way through his interaction, making me more uncomfortable than himself. Through some unknown mystery, he achieves scoring a date. Now to me as a spectator, this is already a pretty big red flag. This is what I mean. Ghouls can't be identified easily. So why would you want to meet any strangers somewhere on your own? That just seems stupid to me. You can't and really shouldn't trust anyone if you like being alive. It doesn't mean you can't go on dates or meet new people, but you just must be extra cautious and prepare safety nets ahead. Telling your family and friends that you go out with someone is just a standard baseline here. Having backup nearby or functional firearms is pretty much the only way to keep yourself safe. Unless of course you are a ghoul denier, in which case, stay away from me. I think it would be great if the government cooperated with citizens to ensure their safety when they end up meeting strangers. Not running away while knowing you are super socially awkward is something only the bravest among us can do. Seriously, someone give this man a friendly pat on his shoulder. That was pretty insane. I would have died. To improve your errors, you must venture out and face your fears. That's how this shit works. However, can we please not ignore that this woman is not eating her freaking food? Why not? Isn't she hungry? Why did she order something in the first place? Huh? This is the first big red flag that I cannot comprehend how he could overlook that. Yet Kaneki doesn't seem to be aware of it. So either he's a major simp and his PP is currently hijacking his brain, or he's just clueless about ghouls in general. In my opinion, if you live in a ghoul-infected area, you should educate yourself. You should find out how they work so you can identify the signs if you come across any, at least in theory. That way you would have known about their aversion to human food, and this untouched plate of 2 magnificent sandwiches would ring the bells.
静かですね。
Walking home in darkness might not be the ideal way to move around either. I personally wouldn't take the risk before having taken appropriate measures, especially since my date didn't freaking touch her food before. Actually, you know what? Chances are very high I would pretend to receive a call from my imaginary dying mother, leave straight away, dye my hair, get fake glasses, and either indulge in a hikikomori lifestyle or just become a freaking hermit. Turns out that the girl he went on a date is a freaking ghoul. There you go. What a surprise. He gets bitten and almost eaten in the process. He doesn't stand a chance. When she's about to finish him off, he is saved by random construction site pillars raining down onto her. Why not, right? Now, if you think he is safe, it couldn't be farther from the truth. When he wakes up in the local hospital, he is told that he has received a bunch of new organs transplanted from Ritsu's body, which was the secretary ghoul from before. This doesn't sound very appealing to me. Would you accept to receive organs of someone who's a murderer or a rapist? Let me know what you think in the comments. A few weeks pass and he eventually recovers. He goes back to school and is about to pick up his life again. He doesn't really have an alternative, especially since he is an orphan and has nobody but himself. When he's about to have lunch with his friend, this is what happens. I love how they decided to use this amazing looking food to depict the change he goes through. He can't eat it. For the love of God, even if he wanted to, he just can't. So there are really just two options here. Either this dish is one of those dishes that look like it comes from heaven but tastes like wet paper, or perhaps he morphs into a ghoul. He doesn't seem to understand what's going on at first. After all, it could be brain damage that changed his sense of taste. At home, he pretty much eats himself through his complete fridge just to make sure. Meanwhile, in the background though, the TV is on where a ghoul specialist is having his 15 seconds of fame. He explains that to ghouls, human food tastes like foul stuff. In fact, everything tastes so incredibly terrible to them, they can't eat anything else but human flesh. Meaning if they want to survive, they must eat humans, which of course is a direct threat to humanity and therefore a big problem. That is why the Commission of Counter Ghoul exists, but later more to them. Kaneki is in trouble, but what would you do in his place? If you were to switch positions with him right now, how would you proceed? I think it is safe to say that he is very lucky not to have any immediate family members. He wouldn't be missed by anyone if he suddenly disappeared or decided to stay low-key for the time being. Which, by the way, I think is the best way to go for now. If this was me, I would probably take a few days off just to let that sink in. I would carefully contemplate and come to terms with the fact that my previous life is over. Period. This psychological change can't be made in a day. It must be a step-by-step process. Anything else would be madness, believe me. But our dear Kaneki here decides a slightly different tactic. Okay, what he does is he leaves his home, walks through Shibuya, licks his fingers like a freaking crazy mother and stares at young women passing by. Yeah, I mean, why not, right? Eventually he comes across another ghoul who is feasting on a dead person. He learns quickly that ghouls aren't much team players. Everyone has his corner, and if you invade it, you better prepare to put up a fight. Kaneki is saved by another ghoul. Turns out that she belongs to Antiku, an organization that aids the stranded ghouls, sort of like the Soul Society for spirits in Bleach. They have their base in War 20 and overlook the situation here. They don't kill other humans, but rather pick up dead bodies at famous suicide sites. It's a pretty smart move, and probably pretty eco-friendly too. Kaneki ends up there too. I can't really blame him. His whole life got turned upside down and he didn't eat anything ever since he turned into a ghoul. When he is brought to them, which by the way is in the same cafe where he first had his egg sandwich, he gets to know quite a bit of what it means to be a ghoul. For example, coffee. Apparently drinking coffee is the only thing apart from human flesh that they can consume. If I were one of them, I would run an underground lab and create human coffee toffees. How about that, selling ghoul candy in 2021? Even though Kaneki has found this place, he is not yet ready to leave his old life behind. He still goes to school. How about that? Jesus. I guess that's what you call Japanese diligence. At school, he surprisingly meets the same ghoul that has almost killed him a few days ago. Instead of trying to escape, he and his friend get involved in a pretty heavy battle. It looks pretty hopeless, but when Kaneki sees his friend almost being killed, his real powers awaken. And for the first time in this movie, I feel like I'm actually seeing a real monster. He eventually defeats the four-eyed dude and almost ends up eating his friend himself. But before he can start snacking on him, he gets taken by Antiku and they bring him back to their headquarters. To be fair, this is exactly the thing that happens if you deny your real self. You go crazy. Once he had turned into a ghoul, Kaneki should have gone into a 2-week Vipassana meditation retreat. He would have been the first Buddhist ghoul and possibly even the first self-development ghoul tuber. At this point, however, after his only friend has almost died, he finally comes to terms with the circumstances and tries to adjust his lifestyle. In my opinion, this is the best time to educate yourself. You've almost been killed, your friend too. You have zero idea how things work, therefore you should sit down, take a pen and paper, and start listening exactly what those ghouls have to say. They have all the answers you may want to know. Of course he doesn't, but he is offered a job, which I guess is some progress. I guess this is exactly what he needs at this point. He is quickly told that being a ghoul comes along with many new problems. Antiku is currently hiding a mother and her daughter, whose father has been killed by the CCG a few weeks ago. They aren't safe and are in need to change their identities and escape War 20. The CCG is actively trying to find them. They consist of human agents that have special means to identify and kill ghouls. Ghouls possess something sort of like tails or wings, like we've seen before. They are called kagune, and are made of special cells that can harden in an instant. By using the sac organ of a ghoul that forms the kagune, the agents have found a way to manufacture weapons called Kaneki. With those weapons, they attain similar strength like ghouls and are very capable in taking ghouls heads on. Kaneki, the ghoul barista, is having a good time at Antico, and to be honest, it looks like a very healthy place to be at. In fact, it seems to be healthier than some human institutions, at least in my opinion. Eventually he matures enough so that he can finally order his custom-made personal Kaneki cosplay mask. Yes. The idea behind the ghoul mask is pretty simple. Keep your human identity safe while being in ghoul form. It's a countermeasure to prevent the CCG to identify you. I think that's a pretty neat way to prevent exposure, but it wouldn't be enough for me. If I were the head of Antico, I would franchise this cafe. Having a ghoul-run cafe network across War 20 and perhaps even further would provide us with the security and information we need to establish a safe haven for every ghoul abiding to our rules. Instead of poke centers, think in a way of ghoul cafes. Members must follow 2 rules. First, don't kill any humans. And second, don't let the organization be exposed. If we are able to expand in that way, there is no question that ghouls will be able to exist with an increasing sense of security. Meanwhile, the CCG is planning their next move. It seems like they have identified the woman and her daughter that are currently residing in the cafe. When he spends time with the ghoul girl, they establish a friendship. She convinces him to drop off a gift at the place where her father has been killed. I mean, I like the idea of that, but I don't think this is a very good idea. They might not know how Kaneki looks, but seeing a stranger wearing an eye patch at midnight dropping something off hidden in a white tissue is pretty suspicious pretty much everywhere in this world. How about you just wait until the next day when the park is filled with dozens of kids screaming around and being annoying? Or even better, wait until those 2 ghoul refugees have left this ward first. Full 15 seconds later, the CCG agents appear and start digging like dogs trying to cover their shit. Great, I smell trouble. They find the possessions of that father and are able to identify the mother. Wonderful. Burying highly confidential items in a public park is probably not the best way to go, my friends, especially when you belong to a race that is notoriously alienated. If you're serious about your security and well-being, maybe you should burn anything capable of blowing up your security. If you for some reason are an extremely religious ghoul, you could for example bribe a graveyard manager and establish a tomb with a fake name on it, where you can worship the deceased. I wouldn't recommend it, but you know, if this is what you're into, go for it. The next day, when the 2 refugees are finally leaving this ward, it doesn't go as smooth as planned. Who knew? I'm grateful for Antico for having taken care of them so well, but how about escorting them until they are out of reach? Sending them off at your doorstep seems a little bit lazy to me. Only a few minutes pass and they are indeed attacked by 2 agents. Yes, great. The girl is able to escape, but her mother stays back to fight. Kaneki eventually comes but doesn't join the fight because he would be pretty useless. He hasn't learned how to fight yet. In fact, he has no idea what powers ghouls actually possess. All they can do is watch. And again, this could have been prevented if Kaneki wasn't a complete idiot the night before. In any way, this is how it turned out. I really like this character, but we can't really blame any of the involved parties here. I mean, humans try to protect themselves, and ghouls try to survive. It is just a case that ghouls and humans are natural enemies. Nothing can change that. As long as ghouls kill and eat humans, humans will try to prevent that. The only hope I see for ghouls to escape extinction is franchising. The killing of her didn't sit well with the others. Toka, one of the Antika members, ventures out to pay back the debts. Nothing can stop her, and I really don't mind seeing a sexy ghoul girl wearing a bunny mask murdering some humans. But to be serious for a second, vengeance doesn't solve the problem here. In fact, every kill will further intensify the issues. The only solution apart from franchising Antika cafes across Tokyo would be to either kill all humans and establish complete ghoul rule, or kill all ghouls and re-establish the humans as apex, or talk it out, make agreements and see if those can be upheld. Kaneki is fed up. So far he hasn't been much helpful. This is partly his fault, so I can completely understand his frustration. I think it's time for some action. He finally decides to get some training, and what could be better than getting hands-on combat training from Toka? Here are the training scenes. I don't really have much to say here, but I need to say something to fill in the void. So while I'm talking nonsense, I hope you can enjoy those epic Matrix X Dragon Ball fight scenes that will turn Kaneki into the new Apex Ghoul in 1 week. And then, when the time finally comes and he has attained Xenos level ghoul strength, he will finally, for the love of God, wear his goddamn mask. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. Time to kick some ass. Our young ghoul kid gets tricked into a trap, which in my opinion was absolutely predictable. If you can't catch the big fish, go for the small one instead. It's a shit move, but it does work. They cut off an arm of her mother and place it at the same place where she was killed, making it seem like she has returned, which of course is a complete lie. Toka and Kaneki go for rescue. They both get involved in separate battles. Kaneki is able to pull out his new attained Jackie-chan moves and disables his opponent quite quickly. We get some nice slow-mo shots and finally a very satisfying final strike of our boy Ken Kaneki. We all know how it feels like to take the first bite of our favorite meal, but he takes it to another level. Meanwhile, Toka is fighting on a picturesque riverside, lucky girl, although her opponent is much stronger than Kaneki's. She's struggling quite a bit, but luckily the little ghoul girl behind awakens her Kagune and cuts off every limb of that agent. I guess a bunch of Kagune is all you need. Thanks for watching.